So the answer to "Are you ready?" this morning was, I guess.
Maybe.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Hi. Kaboom. No heads
I'm
up.
smiling behind my mask.
I might have jiggled the camera a little too.
Yeah.
And there goes the air conditioning.
Yay.
Hi. I was gonna save this mask for my lesson with an 8-year-old tomorrow morning outside.
Because it's the Millennium Falcon.
It's the Millennium Falcon. But I had to wear it. The reason I had to wear it today is I forgot to do laundry last night because I went home from the shop and went to sleep. It happens.
I keep glancing at the camera real quick. This is a completely side note, but my shoulder is not red like the rest of the dress.
And you were freaking out?
No, it looks like I have this whole arm tattoo every time I glance at it, and I'm like, I didn't realize my tattoo was that big.
Sleep tattoo on your shoulder. What?
Yeah,
no, it's pretty. I like the two fabrics. They look very nice together. So I didn't do laundry because I realized after dinner I should have done laundry with all my masks. We switch masks at lunch, which means I go through my masks faster, especially when we have afternoon shopping, which we did yesterday. Hi, Pam. It was great to see you. But I can still wear this tomorrow.
If she runs it through the washing
machine. Because my plan is to go home and do laundry tonight. We'll see if that happens. I didn't even see what look she just gave. Anyway.
No, it was a nodding.
I usually assume the worst. That she's making a face. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Thursday Sun Dragons Sideshow.
The Adventures of Liz and Rebecca.
I'm Rebecca. I'm the owner at Sun Dragon Art and Fiber in downtown Brevard, North Carolina.
I'm Liz. I'm the minion at Sun Dragon Art and Fiber in downtown Brevard, North Carolina.
And it is not as sunny as it was yesterday. It is the rainy season here in Brevard, which means if it starts sunny, it will probably end up rainy, or it will just be overcast the whole day. And we have option B today. So, yeah. And Thursdays are becoming an interesting phenomenon because, excuse me, yarn lung. Because we usually like to talk about all the progress we make, but lately it's been busy enough in the middle of the week between Tuesday and Thursday, and we appreciate that, but we're tired, that we don't have a lot of progress to talk about in the way that we might on Tuesday, where it's like, look at all the things I did this weekend. So we have, I don't know, I think we still have things to talk about though, because some intriguing things have happened, at least for me.
I started a new project.
We're going to start with, Liz started a new project. And was there a reason you started a new project?
So yesterday I wanted to take a break, but it's easier to take a break with something in your hand. And I was kind of bored with all my other projects that I brought or left home. And so
and we're not here all day on Wednesdays and Fridays all the time, but we are now when we have afternoon shopping. So
like need for me just sit for a few. And yeah, so anyway, I've been wanting to do this really cool sweater so bad, but it requires a lot of curling.
Curling is the enemy of Liz.
As everyone knows, yes. Curling is awful. So
I'm okay with it.
Several people have suggested that I learn to knit backwards.
That's right.
Which is a really weird thing.
Like just go back and forth and not switch hands.
And not switch hands.
And yeah. I used to do that when I was a kid. And then I learned to knit the right way. And now I don't remember how to do that anymore.
Well,
aside.
I did a swatch. Sort of. It was more of a triangular swatch because that way my stitches grew instead of starting.
Because we all know Liz likes triangle shawls.
Yeah. Anyway, so I did that and played around with it. And
I was about to say, what I'm looking at is not the triangle thing you were working on yesterday.
No. I ripped that out before we left the shop.
You're like, what?
I ripped it out before we left the shop.
I missed that.
Yeah. Anyway, and so to get ready for my really, really cool sweater, that's like all stockinette. or reverse stockinette. That is the whole thing. Is stockinette or reverse, because it's the sweater that looks like the Central Ave hat, where the ribbing is actually stockinette and reverse stockinette, and it's a double-breasted sweater. It's the Tierney.
It has ripples in it that looks like ribbing, but it's not done ribbing this way. It's done this way to stack.
And there's short rows in it, and it's going to be so cool. But that's a lot of curling. Even if I chop, half of the bottom half of the sweater off to give me my crop look, it's still a massive amount of curling. So I started another Il Grande Favorito by Isabel Kramer.
Is that a bottom up or a top down?
It's a top down. You start like at the collar, at the collarbone, and go back and forth. Short. Its raglan increases in stockinette, and then when you get down here,
you cast
on, and then you can start knitting in the round, and then it's a regular top down.
So for people who haven't done sweaters before, or are wondering about the top down construction of sweaters, pieced or not, the back is always higher than the front. Not always, but usually. I mean, have you ever tried to put a shirt on backwards, like a t-shirt, like what I'm wearing backwards, and it's on backwards because you're choked, because the back side of it is higher. That's why you feel choked when you put a shirt on backwards, and you're like, wait, what? One of the reasons. And so there are so many different ways to create that higher back. Like if you're knitting it, like I've done a couple of top-down sweaters lately where you cast on the whole entire neck at once. And then you do short rows just along the back, and that makes the back ride up and the front come down. That's one way.
The ranunculus is like that in that it has a whole bunch of short rows in the back and like one short row in the front just to
give a little bit of, because usually the front of a sweater, like if you make a pieced sweater, and by that I mean like look at your t-shirt, it has a front and a back and sleeves that are all like seam here. Often if you do that, the back and the front of the sweater are identical until you get to the neckline. And if you make the back first, you go way up high and the neckline is like boop, ba-doop, ba-doop, right at the top. And if you do the front, you do the armholes where the armpits are the same, and you come up, but you stop much lower down than on the back and start working the neck, cast off here, and start doing some gentle shaping. And then, but when it gets as high as the shoulders for the back, then you shape the back. So that's how they end up with a lower front than the back. Sometimes you run into a sweater, usually it has a really wide boat neck type thing.
It looks almost like a sweatshirt, like a lot of people call it a sweatshirt in the projects, but the neckline comes down, almost down as far or further than my necklace. So it's more of a U or a V neck.
Well, usually it's a really relaxed, open sweater that will have the back and the front be identical. Something that gives you room to breathe here. But then what Liz is doing is it will eventually be in the round. Like some really old Leisure Arts raglan seam sweaters that I've made are like that. Eventually it will be in the round, but at first it's back and forth in some fashion. Like sometimes it'll be here and you'll actually start making the raglan seams up front, but you'll still be going around and back and around and back until it's low enough in the front, and then you just cast on a little bit. There's different ways to do it.
So pinch this together.
Hence
so
curling.
This is the front raglan seam right here. Yeah. And I started with one stitch on that side of the marker. And over here one stitch. So and now I have two.
It's like that. Yeah. And it's going to grow.
It'll come all the way down.
And then eventually she'll do a thing here.
And she has it set up where the two stitch markers in the middle are for your back. So like the next time I do an increase, it is only for the back stitch markers. And then you come back and you do shoulders and then back and then all of it. And like,
and if it sounds complicated, follow the pattern.
Yeah. Isabel Kramer writes it really well.
She's a good pattern writer. I like her patterns. Yeah. Oh, and I wanted to back way up to something you said before, reverse stockinette. Now, a good chunk of the people watching probably know what stockinette and reverse stockinette, and some people are going, what the what? Stockinette refers to when all of your V's, I'm trying not to hide the mic there. This is dark, so it's hard to see, but all of the V's, it's a flatter surface. I call the V's the front side of a knit stitch, and turtlenecks or like slashes the back side. And when you have garter, you knit on every row, so you have fronts and backs of the knit stitch visible on both sides. And when people think about knitting stereotypically, like they think about something that is knit, they think about these V's running down the surface of the fabric. And that's all of the front sides of knit stitches on one side, like facing out on the sweater. And all of the turtleneck bumps on the inside, the back sides of the stitches. And when you're knitting flat, if you're knitting in a circle, that's easy. Just knit, 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 knit.
Yeah.
If you are knitting flat like this, actually that one wasn't done that way, but if you're knitting flat, you have to knit on one side and you have to purl on the other side, because a purl is like a backwards knit stitch, to make the back side of a purl stitch is the front side of a knit stitch. Mind blown, right? For some people, they're like, yeah,
that's
whatever.
why, like for seed stitch or whatever, it's knit your purls and purl your knits.
Yeah.
So that you get a bump and a reverse.
Yeah. But so again, stockinette is when the V's are on the outside facing you, and the turtleneck bumps are on the inside against your skin, say on a sweater. Reverse stockinette, you're still knitting a row and purling a row, right? But the purl side, the bump side is what is on the outside. So it's reverse. It means your right sides and wrong sides are different. Are you going to get the hat? I'm just going to get the hat. Now the hat has ribbing and reverse stockinette. So yeah. So yeah, technical lessons on the sideshow.
So it's ribbed in between, but the sweater I'm doing would just be knit. So we'll have your V's here, and that's the reverse stockinette.
It's just the bumpy bumps.
Looks inside out.
Yeah. Because technically it is.
Yeah.
Except it's outside in. Anyway, it's like some languages read right to left and some read left to right. And the ones that read right to left, they're not backwards. That's the way they're done. But for someone who's used to reading left to right, it's like, oh, that's backwards. No. Like, that's not inside out. That's the right way. It just feels inside.
I have the coolest sweater that's reverse stockinette with cables on the front. Like, it looks like it's inside out, except for the cables that are like.
But honestly, the reverse stockinette, the reverse stockinette is what is on the back side, on the edges of the dragon that I made. It makes things pop better because it's got a different flatness to it. It helps the stitches shine.
Yeah.
You know. So that's our knit conversation for today. I forget when we started, but we'll just keep going.
It's only 9:21. We got plenty.
We got time before the Vikings come and lay siege to the shop.
I'm going to not do my increases on this because it requires paying way more attention.
Oh, what yarn are you using there? This is fun because this is a yarn that we're probably not reordering, but we do love.
I'm using the Aegean tweed,
from Cascade.
Cascade Aegean tweed. It's just an organic wool, roaming gangs of sheep, but it feels really. It's got a nice feel to it.
Yummy.
I have a red sweater. I have chunky sweaters. I figured, a nice olive drab sweater. And
I like olive drab.
So there's another part of this story. So the sweater pattern's written for a 10.5. I'm doing it on a size 9.
What? Why is it? I know she's already told me this, but I've forgotten now. And I'm like, she's going smaller. Liz never goes smaller.
Well, part of it is because the pattern is written for like in between bulky and super bulky yarn. Like, and you're supposed to hold 2 yarns together on a 10.5, and it's supposed to be this heavier thing.
Did you gauge swatch?
No. So I went up to the biggest size, and it's still going to be stretchy enough and whatnot that anyway, it might be my sweater it might become somebody else's sweater.
I'm just like,
stay tuned, because
she's got a logic she's working with, which is awesome. But sometimes not gauging is a recipe for unhappiness.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's just, it miraculously
It'll
works.
be a tighter sweater than my red sweater, which is a 10.5.
And you, I vaguely remember you saying that yesterday. I was very tired. I was trying to listen, but I was also trying to put yarn in the system.
She was like, Liz, you know how this works. And I'm like, yeah. She goes, I just trust you have the skills. And I'm like, yeah.
I do remember saying that too. Mm-hmm. It's a fog, but I remember that.
Yeah. So we will see. If it's a tighter sweater for winter, it'll be great, because then I'll have this nice tight fitted bodice, whatever, that
cozy.
And
then there's the Sarah Beth school of thought. Sarah Beth is one of our knitters. Shout out to Sarah Beth. Hi. She vigorously believes in not gauging. Ain't nobody got time for that. And there might be a few expletives thrown in. But so her philosophy is she doesn't gauge. And if it doesn't fit, she'll find someone it fits. That's her philosophy. It's a lot of work to find someone else to wear it, but that's okay.
It's gonna fit because I can alter it to make it fit.
Okay.
It's a raglan top down, so if I have to add bits and pieces, I know how to do that.
Frankenstein it.
Besides, it's only gonna be like this deep off the armpits, so you know.
Well, I was going to talk about a couple crochet things today as filler fun, because I don't have progress. In fact, I have the opposite of progress to show, but we will hang on to that for a second. She's going to go back to that.
I'm going to go back to this because I know what
if we get our feeder book farm in, I'm going to make a night shift shawl too. Not that I don't have anything else to do right now, but so I had a really fun observational conversation with Knit Night I wanted to share with you all. I might need your assistance with this, Liz. So this shawl, we showed this off on Tuesday, right? And here's the thing I thought was kind of cool. And hang on, I'm gonna give all of this to you for a second because I need to grab a skein of yarn.
Liz being silly, it's that time of the morning.
It's that time of life, right? Oh, sample for me to trip on. Okay. So one skein of yarn, pretty, right? Okay, here, let me grab. Here's the fascinating thing. So here's how big this is, right? And I counted this. I don't remember the exact rows right now, but I'm gonna kind of fudge it. So here's where I started.
17.
Here's where it was more than that. It was more than that. Oh, yeah. It was like, here's where I started, and here's where this first skein ended, right? All of this, because the rows start small and get bigger as you go. I got all the way from the teal or the aqua to the gray with my first skein of yarn. And I want to say 7, 10, 13. Math on camera is not fun and slow. Was that 13 here?
13.
16, 19, 21. Passing the 20 mark by threes is tough. No, that's 22. 19, 22. 25. So almost 27 rows this far out. And again, triangle, the rows get longer as you go. So here to down there, from the gray back to the aqua,
isn't as far as you think.
That was a whole nother skein of yarn. Yeah. And it was only like, let's say, I'll add one on later. So 3, 6, 9, it was maybe 10 or 11 rows for my second skein of yarn because the rows get longer.
And then quick end.
This is how much I had left of my third skein. And from there out to the end, which was almost my whole third skein of yarn, from the aqua to the pink again.
Was maybe what, 6 rows?
About 6 or 7 rows. 6. So just to show you how those skeins get distributed feels really weird. It's like I only made it through how many more rows? But the rows are like, it's the whole length of from where I'm touching up here down to the tip and back over to where Liz is touching. So, what started as like boop, doop, 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 started to go, and then went for the end.
How's that going
in? Something like that. I can't replicate. They're amazing noises that cannot be replicated. Anyway, that's a shout out to Kathleen, because whenever I make noises on Knit Night, she goes, "What's that again?" So, Yeah, so I find that fascinating. For the nerdy people in the knitting crochet group, that's cool. And then the other thing I have to share is, you know, the shawl I was making with these 3 colors, you know,
that
and
she had like that much.
I had, but last night I was on row like 33, 34. I have to go to row 44 before I can do the edging. And I was like, I'm going to bust this out. The whole time I've been working on it, it's the half hexagon wildflower shawl. The whole time I've been working on it, I'm like, it doesn't really look exactly the same as Rachel's. It's, you know, Rachel's half hexagon, it really looked flat along the top and doing this thing like this. And mine was like fanning up, like from the center to hold it up just for you guys to see. I had to hold like this, like it was angling out. It was really wrapping around. And I'm like,
that's weird.
This is weird. And then I was counting stitches because I realized I was off on the sides. They're supposed to be, with every increase, there's still an odd number of stitches. And I was like, I haven't counted for a while because I'm just assuming and I'm just going with it and it's fun and I'm just going with it. And I was counting and I had even number of stitches. And I'm like, well, I have to fudge that. I'll have to fudge that in some way. Let me go back and look at the pattern and see how much it was supposed to be increasing by so I can figure out when I went off.
Look at the pattern.
What? And you know, because a lot of Rachel writes her patterns well, but also writes them in a way that things repeat a lot. And I had made some cognitive leaps in like, okay, well, this seems to repeat this way. So the next row must do the same thing. And I went back and looked at it, and it has double crochet rows for these 2 colors, and it has single crochet rows for this color, and 3 panels, right? Center, 2 sides. For both of these colors, you're increasing on the edge, like panel over here, increasing on the edge where the puffs are, increasing on both edges of the center, and increasing on the side of the puff and the edge up here. So I had assumed that this color did the same thing, because why? Of course, they're all going to do that. Why not? So, and this is every 3rd row. And I went back and looked at the pattern, and it said for these guys, you should be increasing 6 stitches on every row, because a lot of pattern writers will do that. They'll say at the end, if it repeats a lot, they won't put the stitch count at the end for everything, but they'll say, when you're done with the row, you've increased 6 stitches from where you were last time. And I looked at row 6, which is one of the first occurrences of this. It's actually the second, but it was the first one I was paying attention to when I went back and looked. And this row said increase 4 stitches over the row, and I went, uh-oh.
It's a common thing.
It's a thing. It happens even to experienced knitters and crocheters.
And I think sometimes the more you're comfortable with the patterns, instead of actually reading word for word,
comma by comma is what I tell my knitters and crocheters.
We get
one comma at a time.
And with the Papillon is the best example of that. It's like, read through the pattern, because if you actually read it, you'll find where you start. You know, all the fun stuff, and you'll get all the information. We've gotten to a point, though, where most of us are just like, let's skim through the pattern really quick.
I got it. I'll do it.
I got it.
Put the pattern away.
Put the pattern away. And, you know, it's only when the grill out back doesn't fit together that we go back to the trash can to find the directions.
Yeah. So here's what this row is supposed to do. It increases at the edge, starting over here, increases at the edge and increases right before the puffs, just like the double crochet rows. The center panel is just straight across. There's other things in the pattern, because you should buy the pattern because it's amazing. The center panel, no increases. Ooh. Just for this color. And then you increase on this side. So the sides, like 3 pieces, right? The sides are the same within reason, because this guy's doing single crochets, this guy's doing doubles. The side panels are doing the same for all 3 in terms of how they increase. The center panel, these guys increase, this one doesn't, which means the center panel should not be flaring as much which is why my piece was going, woo! And I was like, doesn't feel right. And I looked at it and I went, that means every third row, I was adding 2 more stitches than I should have. There really was no way. I mean, unless I wanted a completely different piece than what Rachie designed, I was going to have to rip it back to row 6.
And how many rows?
I was on row 33 or 34, and each row gets longer. So hence why these look like mangled balls instead of little cakes when they started, because I was like, okay, I can't just rip it out and leave it in a big pile. It's going to be a mess. I have to actually.
And then you can't actually transport it.
Yeah. I did that with the other piece I pulled out. I seem to be pulling out pieces lately. With the knit one, I left it in a big heap because it was one color and I knew I could sit there and do it back up together. Now that we've talked about it for so long, big reveal of how big mine is now. Because I sat there and I actually, I think I both terrified and awe-inspired Brian, because I just was like, and I went, look, it's gone. He went, because he had just said right before I found the error, that's looking really pretty. Because it covered my whole lap. And then he went, you took all that out? I said, yeah, because it wasn't going to be right. And we've had the discussion before that I need to stay within the box for my customers who are going to follow the pattern. So this when I was making it before was already like way up like this. And now see how the top edge, if I hold it up, it's not completely flat, but it's a lot flatter than it was. This is how it's supposed to look, with the center section not being quite as wide as the sides. It's still wonderful. I took it back to row 3. I took it back to this row right here just to make sure, because row 3 did the same thing. And when I took it back that far, see here, this puff is row 6, this puff is row 3. I think row 3 is probably right. I don't think I'd been making assumptions at that point because I was still learning it. I also started this pattern during the sit and stitch and Facebook Live event.
Yeah.
I was multitasking a lot,
yeah.
And I was tired.
Yeah, that tends to be a, hey, I'm going to skim the pattern. Oh yeah, I got this. Real fast.
And I was like, oh, it's starting to make sense. And multitasking. I tell a lot of my knitters, either talk or knit, especially if they're doing something new that they've never done before. I need to take my own advice. So I've restarted this. I have all these in front of me. I texted Liz to say, oh, I just guess what I just found out. And what was your response?
Oh no.
And then what was your, do you remember what you said after that?
At least it's crochet.
At least it's crochet. Because crochet, frogging, which is rip it, rip it, rip it. Knitters and crocheters, we think we're funny. We got jokes. Frogging and crochet is so much easier than knitting, because rip it back. Like when you're done, I could say I have my loops pulled really big because I have to change yarns in a funky way on this. But this is my loop where I ended. If I pull it back, like when you rip it out, I tell my intro crocheters, you're done when you have one loop on your hook. You're done with a stitch. If you have more than one loop, you're either not done with your stitch or you messed up somewhere, and we got to fix it. But like here, let me just terrify some of you, and others go, hey, whatever. If I need to pull it out, look, super easy, super easy.
But when she gets to the spot she wants, one loop. That's it. You're done.
And I get that one loop back on my hook, and I'm ready to take off and go again.
Whereas if I wanted to back out this shawl,
knitting,
I'd have to pull my needles out, pull all that yarn out till I generally stick my needles back in a row or two below where I'm pulling out so that I can catch all those loops again.
All those loops, or they will run away, like run stockings.
Or you've got to put in a lifeline or something to keep all those stitches from, going away. Stick your needles back in and
make
then
sure they're facing the right way.
Yeah.
All the loops.
Which with crochet, it's just pull, 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 one loop. Yay.
find something that looks normal.
Yeah.
Put your hook back in.
Yep.
So that's, we want to talk about pluses and minuses, knit versus crochet. It's apples and oranges in a way. There are pluses and minuses to both. It's not like one wins out over the other, in my opinion. You will find people who will debate that vigorously. That's okay.
I like both of them for completely different reasons.
Mm-hmm. And I just put back in everything I just pulled out. Easy peasy. So, it's easier to take out and fix. And like, if you notice an error, like 5 rows back, rip it out, put it back in. Less to navigate when trying to pick up and go again, which is what I'm doing. So,
but with knitting, if you notice an error 5 rows down, sometimes you can just drop a stitch and do the voodoo that you do to,
I do so well.
That you do so well. that like
I did that.
You can drop the stitch down and fix the mistake and bring it back up, and it looks like no problem.
Mm-hmm.
With crochet, you can't drop the stitch.
Yeah.
So
that's so again, pluses and minuses. Like if there was a problem back here, like sometimes I'll be going along in crochet, and I mean this is fixing many things to rip this much out, because there were other things I fudged in this that now they're gone and I can redo. But if I noticed a problem down here in knitting, I can slide my needles over to it. Potentially, if it's not that far down, I can drop down and pick just that one stitch back up again and fix it. Just zoop, zoop, and be done. In crochet, if I notice a glaring error down here that I can't let go, I have to rip the whole piece back to fix it. There's no way to pop down to it. In both, if it's something that is sewable, you can just hide it. But sometimes if there's a drop stitch that's way down here in knitting and I've knit over it for several rows, I don't want to try to pick it back up again and mash it through where there's no space to mash it through. I will just grab scrap yarn and tack it down. Now, shout out to Dinah. We did both of those things in our outside lesson yesterday. We dropped down and picked up a stitch and forced it back through because it was only about 5 rows, and then there was a spot at the beginning of a blanket where I was like, let's just get it to where it's tight again. So we picked it up for about 3 rows to where, it had probably dropped. And then all this rest of this space, it was like, ain't nobody got time for that. So we used some scrap yarn to just tack that stitch in so it wouldn't run away again. And hopefully wouldn't, when you have a really textured blanket, no one's going to see it.
Yep.
So budget.
I've done that with my Papillon. Found a dropped stitch way below where I needed it, and was like, that's getting sewn in.
Yeah. Well, and because I'm sorry, you said because
nobody's going to go down, and it's not going to look right, and I'm not pulling out that many.
And we've talked about it before. It's the continual. Where is your care bar? Mm-hmm. Or your I don't care bar, whichever. Because different people will treat those situations differently. For some people, it will be, I really don't care. I've done all this work. I'm going to keep going. Let's just tack it in, whatever. For some people, shout out to Amy D. For some people, it's oh no, that will bug me every time I see it, and I must fix it.
She's gone in and done heart surgery on sweaters, like way down deep, dropping multiple stitches. T-pins and blocking pads to put it all back together.
She did a version of this sweater, and see how we have all the nice little holes that go in a nice little regular pattern. She found a hole like down here, a place where there were 2 yarn overs instead of 1. So where it should have gone like this, there was an extra one that was like, boop, over there, out of place. She dropped down about like a whole panel of this all the way down. And she had pins holding things, like open heart surgery. I kid you not. When Liz uses that phrase,
she sent pictures.
She is not kidding.
And it was blocking mats on the bottom and pins holding everything open.
Think about surgery or dissection where you you use the little suture scissory looking whatevers. Shout out to Hina if she even watches these. Because she'll be like, I know what those are called. You're calling them the wrong thing. Sorry.
It was, yeah.
It was both terrifying and genius building to watch her do this, and she fixed it. Her other option would have been to rip out like half of her sweater. And if she hadn't been able to fix it with the delicate surgery she did, she would have done that. Because the Amy D is also someone who's like, socks have to match. And lots of other things. And that's okay. That's her, and we love her, and it's awesome. Whereas Liz has plans for several years now to make socks that have as many errors or things that might mess with the brain in them as possible.
Anything I've heard people fuss about in making socks are going into mine.
Yeah.
Holes,
One of
stripes
these
that
days,
don't match up.
If we ever got the pandemic we were promised, where we would have time to sit around and knit, maybe we'd see Liz's socks. But right now, especially on a Tuesday and Thursday, as we have discussed,
this is about all the knitting I get done.
That's all the knitting she gets done, which means I don't
whatever
get
you see on
anything.
camera.
What I just crocheted like 10 stitches. That is my work for the day until I go home tonight, probably. Unless there's a random miracle, which is good for us but bad for the shop. You know. So
if it gets super slow and we decide to sit down, generally the phone rings or
that's when things happen. Yesterday, after our shopping and everything, where we just sat down to decompress for a minute, we had a gaggle of people walk up, and we're like, uh-oh. But we locked the door. And then the door opened, and we went, oh, poop. We didn't lock the door. And and yeah.
Almost broke the winder.
You almost broke yourself. I'd be more worried about yourself than we can glue the winder. Gorilla Glue, shout out Shia. Gorilla Glue. We'll fix everything. Anyway, so yeah, we didn't have a whole lot of work to show you, but some fun things to talk about. So I almost feel like I'm gonna sneeze, but hopefully
the
not.
sweater is gonna be on needles for quite a while, because I still have the red one to finish. And I've decided this weekend I'm gonna try and get this done.
Awesome. I was gonna say sweaters on needles, that's not a thing. My phrase during the FaceTime, or not FaceTime, Facebook Live, there we go, that we did this weekend was said no knitter ever.
Said no knitter ever.
I've got multiple sweaters on needles, and I don't know when I'll ever finish said no knitter ever. Sarcasm. Yay.
My biggest problem is the sleeves, but
which is why if you have to set goals and guidelines and deadlines, and I'm trying to mush those into one word, that's not going to be a word.
Gold lines.
I was like, doled lines. That's what I was. Doles. We have deadlines and goals. Okay, we're gonna call it quits so we can get ready for the day, because we had some online orders. Thank y'all. That we need to fill, and we need to get ready for people from yesterday who are coming back today, and more. And we have a new tent that I might want to set up early so we don't have to worry about it. Although it might rain.
It's supposed to rain at some point.
Never mind.
I don't know.
I'll wait.
Weather is weird.
I'll wait. Stories. Lots of stories. So thank you for spending some time with us. We will see you again on Tuesday. If not before, if you want to come to Knit Night, you can come to Knit Night. Oh, we almost didn't mention. We wrote a sticky note so we'd remember.
Don't look at the sticky note. I can't read.
No one can see spelling from this far away. The camera is not that good technology. HD is not that HD. It's our anniversary week. I almost completely, I usually count our anniversary from August. And Carol was like, hey, happy anniversary, because I mentioned it on Tuesday, because it was a fleeting flicker in my brain.
The 27th.
27th of July was the day that we threw our doors open. We scrambled to have power. I say we. I scrambled. Liz was not part of the equation yet. To get my doors open for the gallery walk. There's a thing once a month, it's not happening right now, in Brevard called Gallery Walk, where 5 to 8 on the 4th Friday of the month, shops are open. There's more people in town. The galleries, because it's a very artsy town, galleries are open for people to come by and look. And I'd been wanting to open in June, and there were holdups on construction and all kinds of things in my old small space. And I got the power on 2 hours before this. We had 12 lights in the whole entire shop, so it was mood lighting. But
I came to see you the next day.
the next day, Liz is like, it's the anniversary of her first purchase in the shop. Was what, yesterday, the day before? 2 days ago.
Yeah.
3 days ago was my first day in business 3 years ago. I've been in business in 3 years. For 3 years. And, you know, if you make it through 2 years, you're supposed to be in good shape. And then a pandemic
And you
hits.
have a pandemic.
But, you know, so we're going to be celebrating in August. Like, this is your heads up that there will be online sales, not in shop, but online, because we don't want people coming in the shop. Online sales will be headed your way in August, but technically our anniversary was Monday, I guess then. 27th, that was 3 days ago. Monday. That's so weird.
It's been a weird year.
3 whole years. How crazy. And, you know, our first anniversary of doing this is going to be crazy too. We have a few more months to go on that. But
till February.
So yay, celebrate, look for cool things next week. We'll give you more details probably next week in the Side by Side show, and my newsletter will have details. And if I can figure out how to put writing on my online shop, which has been problematic for, like, not descriptions, just like banners. I don't know. It's weird. I'll try to have it in the online shop too, details. But the month of August, yay. First full month in business 3 years ago. Woo! So, celebrate with us. Like this if you found some good info in it, or just liked hanging out with us. Subscribe, share. I don't know. What else? Stay tuned. Did we say stay tuned already?
Stay tuned for more adventures of Liz and Rebecca. Next week, when we start our anniversary month, we'll see what Rebecca gets accomplished on her crochet and knit projects.
Will it get bigger or smaller?
Will Liz finish her night shift that's been hiding out for a year?
Will I start a night shift? Will I ever get back to all the sweaters I thought I was going to make this summer? Maybe.
Yay. It should be fun.
We're always fun, right?
Well, yeah, but fun to see. Like, I mean, we could, like, completely forget what we're doing here and start new stuff.
Said no knitter or crocheter ever. Ever. Okay.
Except for Shia. Shout out to Shia, who does one project at a time.
And we love you, Shia. It's quite a feat. I wish I could do that. Oh well. Bye, everybody.